What do you think about when you hear the word extremist? Do you think about hate groups, aggressive xenophobes, political radicals, or religious zealots? Recently, the Russian judicial system has been given the label extremist to many individuals and organizations. Many of them are religious. Let's discuss what this label entails. The Anti-Extremist Legislation was introduced in the first criminal code of the Russian Federation in 1996. Primarily, it was used to prosecute ultra-right and Islamist groups and individuals not directly involved in violence. However, after a series of anti-government protests and activities of the late 2000s, the Russian state and law enforcement started actively using the anti-extremist legislation against ideological enemies. The most infamous case of the application of this label is the persecution of Jehovah's Witnesses. Of all the accusations the judicial system could use against them, the label extremist is probably the most paradoxical for anyone familiar with their beliefs and principles. One may not share their interpretation of the Bible, their missionary and evangelizing practices, or some elements of their lifestyle, but labeling them extremist is weird. Historically, they have been persecuted in the Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, and other autocratic regimes for their pacifism. They always refused to serve in the army and go to war, for which they were put in prisons, concentration camps, and even executed. They also refused to participate in any political organizations or activities, including, for instance, voting. The major trigger for the regimes, however, has always been the structure of their organization. Jehovah's Witnesses have a vertical hierarchy and the spiritual center that makes the most important decisions on the Bible, morality and lifestyle, and also publishes their literature in all languages, is situated in the United States. This has historically caused much irritation and accusations of American influence, if not direct espionage. When it comes to labeling them as an extremist organization and their literature as extremist materials, in Putin's Russia this accusation has been probed on multiple political and ideological opponents of the regime, so that the evident counter-arguments to extremism, such as Jehovah's Witnesses' pacifism, have been simply ignored. Hundreds of witnesses are put in prison for up to 8.5 years for simply congregating together or talking to someone about their faith as the only evidence of their extremism. The New World Bible translation that Jehovah's Witnesses use was also labeled an extremist material in 2017. The court in the small town of Vyborg, next to the Finnish border, where the cargo with Bibles and some brochures was apprehended, is a fascinating story. The court called for experts from both sides. The prosecution had basically two tasks, which would be great challenges in the real judicial process. First, they needed to prove that the New World Translation is not a Bible, because 2 years prior to that, in 2015, President Putin signed a law that exempted 4 major holy books, including the Bible, from any potential scrutiny for extremism. Second, the prosecution needed to find any extremist quotations in the New World Bible that would not bear the same meaning in the synodal translation used by the Russian Orthodox Church. The experts of the defense testified to the fact that the New World Translation might have its specificities and peculiarities, yet it is after all a translation of the Bible, just like any other. Second, they refused every citation of the prosecution with the analogous quote from the Synodal Bible. Despite all that, the court concluded that the New World Translation is not a Bible, because it is based on some different sources and bears evident traces of the Jehovah's Witnesses' theology, and the quotation that testified to the extremist position of Jehovah's Witnesses have made it to the final decision uncontested. The brightest example is the quote from the experts' report on the story of Jesus and Pontius Pilate. In all 4 Gospels, when Jesus was brought to Pilate, the procurator saw no guilt in him and offered the people of Judah to free him, as it was their custom at the Passover. The priests and elders, however, refused and asked Pilate to release a criminal named Barabbas instead. Although you can read this story in every biblical translation there is, the expert concluded that the Jehovah's Witnesses' interpretation is anti-Orthodox Church, and I quote, "Clerics are described as hypocritical, greedy, cruel, responsible for spilling blood, lying, spreading pagan beliefs, and partaking of false pagan rituals." End quote. Apart from Jehovah's Witnesses, there are multiple marginal religious groups or individuals accused of extremism, whether they in practice had any hateful, violent, or degrading beliefs or intentions or not. And I personally think there are more to come. Please like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. I see you all next time.